Good morning, everyone, and welcome back. Obviously, today is also Yom HaZikaron, and so we'll dedicate our learning in loving memory of all those who fell defending the land of Israel. We have the opportunity to study the Haftarah for Parashat Kedoshim, which normally Achrimo Kedoshim are read together. I don't know what Haftarah you have in your books for it, but it's actually the Haftarah for, in the art scroll, it's Haftarah that's highlighted for Achrimo, from Amos, from chapter 9, verse 7 to 15. In some, it's Kedoshim. The truth is that, at least according to the Ramah and the Ashkenazic tradition, is that we pretty much always read this Haftarah. If they're read together, we read this Haftarah. If they're read separately, we read this Haftarah. This is the Haftarah that sort of is connected to the themes and the topics of Achrimot and Kedoshim. And it's the primary Haftarah of the two when they're either read separately, or read together. So that's sort of what we have. Obviously, last week we read Machar Chodesh, the special Haftarah for the day before Rosh Chodesh. This year, Kedoshim is by itself, and we'll read the Haftarah, but I think it's, at least in the art scroll, it's for the Haftarah for Achrei, even though this week's is Kedoshim. So all of that means that we're on page 1173. For those following at home in the Tanakh, we are in the book of Amos, which is part of Treyasar, the 12 minor prophets, and we are chapter 9, verse 7 to 15. So right off the bat, you'll notice verse 7. Lee, you're muted.
You said the art scroll has the Haftarah being the one for Achrei, but my art scroll has it as not being.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
That's cool. The stone chumash, the art scroll stone chumash, as 1173 is the Haftarah for Achrei.
Right.
And it has the Haftarah from Yecheskel, from Ezekiel 22 for Kedoshim.
Oh, there it is.
Oh, yes.
That's fun. What?
Yeah, what my edition has is Ezekiel 22.
For what? For Kedoshim.
For Kedoshim, yeah.
Right. So that's exactly what I said. But we're not. That's not the Haftarah for Kedoshim. Oh,
I see what you're saying. Okay.
And Lee, I think also you're confused because you are in a time warp right now. Right? Lee is in a time warp. Why? Because this 8th day of Passover in America was a regular Shabbat in Israel, which means that Lee already heard both Achrimot and Kedoshim, Parshiot, those Parshiot read separately. And he's going to come this Shabbat and he's going to feel in a time warp because he's going to hear the Parsha of Kedoshim all over again. What Haftarah, Lee, this is the Haftarah you read last Shabbos. What Haftarah did you hear last Shabbos?
Last Shabbos I was here.
Oh, right, you're back already. The week before that.
Right, and it was the one for Achrei Mot.
Yeah, well, what they read? Do you remember?
It was Erev Rosh Chodesh we did.
That was last week. What, 2 weeks ago? What Haftarah did you hear 2 weeks ago in Israel? Your last Shabbat in Israel?
The one I read was for Achrei Mot.
Right, which one was it?
I don't remember.
I think it's the Haftarah that you will hear this Shabbos. I imagine. I think that's the vast majority of the minhag in Israel. So Lee, this is a time where for you heard this Haftarah 2 weeks ago in shul, right? You'll hear it again now. So it's just this odd thing. The Bilmuses follow online. They listen to it afterwards because now it's late in Israel, especially tonight being Yom Ha'atzmaut in Israel already. But I'm sure they'll listen to this later. But it's a really interesting reality, which we don't talk about much, is that Israel and the diaspora are sort of out of sync all the way now till Shavuot. And there's a question about why that is. Why is that the case? Like why, we know technically why it is, right? It happened because of the way the calendar was. But why not? Achrimo Kedoshim could easily be read together, and then we would be back on the same page. Why do we wait all the way till like the Shabbos before Tisha B'Av, all the way deep into the summer to catch up, and then that we'll be back in the same system? I don't have a great answer for why that is. I think that's just the way the customs developed. Probably it wasn't as much of a reality because like travel to Israel wasn't as common as it is today. and people would go for much longer periods of time. And there is an interesting idea among some of the religious Zionist community that they should move the custom in Israel to read the earliest double parsha so that we be back in sync as a way of sort of reforging the connection with the diaspora, which I think is an interesting question, or really the opposite, that the diaspora should read the earliest double parsha to reforge the connection with Israel. Even if that was an idea that merited, great investigation, part of being in diaspora means there's no central leadership or anything like that. So I don't even know how an idea like that would be adopted. So it's just an interesting question, and something just to recognize and to note for those particularly, especially those who are going to Israel in the coming months, that's going to happen. But all of that is a segue to our Haftarah. I don't want to take too much time away from our Haftarah. Parashat Kedoshim, the last section of Amos. It is the shortest Haftarah of the year, weighing in, I think, at 1 or 2 verses shorter than the Haftarah of Kitete, which is the second shortest Haftarah of the year. Why don't we read more of the Haftarah at the end? We can't, because it's the end of Amos. It's done. There is no more. This is the end of Amos, the last section of Amos. Amos, for those who recall, does anyone recall when the last time we read a Haftarah from Amos? There are 2 Haftarah, if my memory serves it correctly, that we read from Amos. This is like a super bonus question. So Parshas Vayeshev, all the way back in Bereshit, with the story of the selling of the brothers, we read Amos. We read from the story of Amos, read from the beginning of Amos. Amos, just for some context, Amos is a prophet from the southern kingdom who is sent to the northern kingdom to prophesy. All right, we'll just open up the beginning of Amos, chapter 1 of Amos. He is, so therefore, just from a timeline perspective, we know approximately when he lived, because he has to have lived when the northern kingdom is still functioning, right? Remember the united kingdom of David and Solomon only lasts 2 generations. Then it splits, so Amos is speaking to that split kingdom. And Amos begins, this is chapter 1, verse 1. Divrei Amos, these are the words of Amos, Asher haya banokdim, that he was a noked, mi Tekoa, from Tekoa, from the town of Tekoa. Tekoa is now in Gush Etzion. There's a whole area there. There's Tekoa, which is a large, lack of better term, settlement in Gush Etzion. There is right near there the new town of Ma'ale Amos, the heights of Amos, named for our prophet who comes from Tekoa. We have Nokdim, which is also the name for a community there that's from Tekoa. All of those are sort of west of Frat. Like it's, if you know Gush Etzion, it's sort of not in the heart of Gush Etzion, it's like the next part of Gush Etzion. And all of that is allusions to our prophet. Asher Chazal Yisrael, right? That prophesies concerning Israel, right off the bat. We don't mean Israel, the Jewish people as a whole. We mean the northern kingdom, the kingdom of Israel. Yimei Uzziah Melch Yehudah, during the time frame of Uzziah, who was the king in Yehudah, and in Judah, and Bimei Yeravam ben Yoash, during the reign of Yeravam, the son of Yoash, Shnataim lefnei harash, 2 years before the great earthquake. Right, there's this earthquake in the ancient Near Eastern time that is referenced throughout Tanakh. That is a major event of catastrophic destruction in Israel. It is noted not just in Jewish sources, but across ancient Near Eastern sources. They all reference this great earthquake. If you recall, Israel is on a fault line, a major fault line. They have these major earthquakes every once in a while. And obviously we know from a scientific perspective, hey, Victor, obviously we know from a scientific perspective that earthquakes are caused by tectonic plates shifting and building together. But the role of the Navi is not to describe science to us. It's to describe why different things happen beyond just how they happen. And there are different things ascribed to why that is: decadent lifestyle, not listening to God. And then the Navi talks a lot about that and forecasts this earthquake long in advance, as we see in the introduction. Right? All of this is sort of just introduction to Amos. He goes to the northern kingdom. He is a prophet of great rhetoric, very sharp, very clever with his word plays, very clever in sort of building a picture in your head and then quickly, sort of changing your changing direction, sort of leaving you guessing to where he's coming from and bringing up lots of emotions that even in the end might not necessarily been truly there. Right? I'll give an example. You're waiting for some good news about something, and someone calls, and they do that like hesitation and this and that, and you expect the answer is in the negative, and you're all upset, and then all of a sudden, like they surprise you. No, it was okay, right? Like unfortunately, you passed the test. Congratulations, right? There's like a psychology to that, right? Besides where it catches you off guard. But especially if you sort of really develop into that first thought, even though you change, sometimes you still feel that lingering sadness, even though there's nothing to be sad for. It's like your mind has been now brought up, disappointment, right? Amos plays a lot with that. And we'll see that in our Haftarah. He's very, very sharp and very caustic and critical against the Jewish people for what he sees as an overly decadent society that has sort of forgotten God, that is living a very prosperous and fat lifestyle. They are treating people poorly and they are morally corrupt, right? That's Amos's world that he's speaking to. It's built on a confluence of a time period when the Northern Kingdom is doing great, trade is expanding, the stock market is rising to new heights, and people have summer homes and winter homes and vacation homes, and yet the margins of society are being overlooked, and they are not treating their responsibilities with morality and other responsibilities that are typically required. And that's sort of the back of Amos. And he's very clever with his imagery. We'll just do one more example. So he's prophesizing in the story to the kingdom of Yehudah, to the kingdom of Israel, to the northern kingdom during the time period of Jeroboam II, right? And one of the languages that he uses over and over again in the first word, so chapter 2. Actually, we'll make some use of the Zoom that we have, right? We can't be in person. Might as well make the best use of it. So far, all we've done is talked about the first chapter. Let's see how that went. Amos. Can you see the screen?
Yeah.
You see Debrei Amos?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yeah. You don't have my social security up there or something like that. It's Debrei Amos, right? This is what we just read. He was a noked. Some people say it's a shepherd. Maybe he was a sycamore cutter. It's a whole conversation. Someone wrote a book on this. Not for us right now. He's prophesizing to Israel during the time period of Uzziah and Yeroboam, right? Hashem, Bayomer, he says, Hashem mitzion yishag. The Lord roars like a lion from, yishag is the roar of a lion. It's not just roar, it's the way a lion roars, right? Roars like a lion from Sion. Omi Yerushalayim yitain kolo. And from Jerusalem, God shouts God's voice, right? Who is he speaking to here? We just said, who is he chazah on? He prophesied concerning Israel, the northern kingdom. So he walks into the northern kingdom that's split from Jerusalem, that's split from that understanding, and says, God, the God of your people, speaks from Jerusalem, doesn't speak from the northern kingdom. Right, so right off the bat, very sharp, very attacking. But what language is he using here? How are we describing God? What embodiment of God is essentially being called into place here? Lee, you're muted.
As angry lion, sort of.
An angry lion. Excellent. Why is God an angry lion? Right. By the way, what's the symbol of the town of the state of the city of Jerusalem? A lion.
It's a lion.
Right? Where does that come from? Maybe it comes from this. But why is he a lion? Why is he a lion? Any thoughts?
The people are the sheep.
The people what?
The people are the sheep, the prey of the lion, the people of the northern kingdom.
Why not like a tiger or a bear? Why a lion?
Hasn't
Go ahead, Renana.
no, I was just going to say, hasn't the lion been a symbol of Judah for centuries?
It has. It definitely has, right? And that goes all the way from the blessings of Yaakov.
Yaakov, right.
Definitely has. So I'll give you what I think the answer is here, right? And it involves a little bit of archaeology. So if you Google, hold on, I lost my chair, right? Hold on. Who's he speaking to again? Jeroboam, right? You see my Google image?
Yeah.
This is a seal that is to Yerovam II, right? This is Yerovam seal. What image did Yerovam decide for some nice political theater, some nice propaganda to use to describe himself? The lion.
The lion, yeah.
Yerovam, we know that Jeroboam II uses the lion as a symbol of his dynasty. So what's Amos doing? Amos is saying to the king, who's barking instructions, who's setting the framework for the moral order of society, who is leading by example, who is responsible for the laws, that you are not the lion that rules over everything. You are, who is that? Every time people see your seal, what do they should think about? Not you, they should think about God. God is the lion, right? It's a very clever, very direct sort of attack on the people who Jeremiah is, or who Amos is trying to speak to, right? And he uses this, a lot. We don't see this sort of language in other. Yirmiyahu doesn't say God roars like a lion. Yeshayahu doesn't say God roars like a lion. Amos is using it, and we understand why now, because he's attacking Yerovam and the corrupt culture that Yerovam has created. Right, so that's sort of the background to Amos. There's really tons more to talk about. For a book that's only 9 chapters, we could spend the entire morning sort of thinking about some of the things. But we're gonna go jump to our Haftarah. Right, everyone with me? Now we're on page 1173, chapter 9, verse 7. Hello, kivnei kushim atemli. You, O Jews, are like the children of Kushim. Let's just take the simple explanation. They are Ethiopian. You are like Ethiopian to me. What does that mean? What does that sound like? Cindy, you're muted, so I can't hear your ideas.
I was just thinking out loud. Korah was Cushite.
Right, definitely, and that's where the word comes from, right? There are definitely people who are Kushim. But what does this mean? Is this good for the Jews or bad for the Jews? Presumably bad, right? You're like anyone else. You're just like the Ethiopians. Meaning, what about our special relationship with God? You're not special. Continues on. B'nai Yisrael, Neum Hashem. So says God. Hello at Yisrael, heleti mi eretz Mitzrayim. But didn't I take the Jewish people out of the land of Israel, right? Don't we have a special relationship with God? God took us out of Egypt. We're special people, chosen people, right? We have that special relationship with God. Hituzan, Uplishtim Mikaftor, Baramikir. God saved other people also. Other people have freedom stories. We're not the only ones. Right? So this verse comes out in a very almost like biting way, right? What happens first? First, you're just like the Ethiopians, right? God saved the Jewish people, right? You think you're special. Again, think you're special. Switches Yirmiyahu switches Amos right away. No, other people are also special, right? Right? Amos is sort of playing with this universalistic and particularistic theme here, and it's a real challenge. It's a real challenge. Some of the commentators sort of struggle to understand what this means. Rashi actually understands this to mean similar to what we said. It's denigrating the Jewish chosenness. You think you're special. You think you're unique. You have a special relationship with God. You're not. You're not so special, right? Others say, no, this is really about being special, right? And they sort of recast the verse. Why do they do that? Let's read on. What's going to happen? Eni Hashem, the eye of God will be in the nation, the sinful nation. Vishmalti ota mi'al pnei adama. I'm going to wipe out the nation that is sinful and waste them from the face of the earth, right? Does that sound good or bad for you? Right? Terrible, right? Total destruction. You're nothing special. We've heard this before for other people. God wipes people out because they're not good. Fs. Ki ilo ashmid at Beit Yisrael nu Hashem. But don't worry, I'm not going to utterly destroy you, right? So we're like in this emotional roller coaster. You're not special. You're nothing new. If you guys sin, you're going to be wiped out like anyone else. Oh, but we're not going to destroy all the Jewish people, right? Because there's something special here. You have a unique relationship with God. Kihine anochi mitzaveh. I'm going to command all the nations, and they're going to shake the Jewish people, right? You think this should be positive, right? Because we just said that we're not going to totally destroy the Jewish people. And they're going to shake out the Jewish people from a sieve, and no pebble shall fall to the ground, meaning everyone will die. And by the sword, all will die who are sinners, who say that the bad won't come to us. The bad won't come to us, right? So, like, there's all these images that leave you sort of unsettled, right? There's terrible things that happen, right? But why is that? We have this special relationship with God, but not really. But God's then going to be so angry at us, so God wants to wipe us out. But we're not really going to fully be destroyed. And you're going to shake the sieve, but really nothing's going to come out. But don't worry, we're not going to be totally destroyed. And the sinners of the nation are going to be killed. Right? We'll get back to that line in a second, because I want to just highlight what their rhetoric is. We see this incredibly sharp sort of push and pull with Amos. I mean, Amos really plays with this theme of chosenness over and over and over again. It's not in our Haftarah, but we'll mention it here for a moment. In another place, Amos talks about the chosenness of the Jewish people, right? In chapter number 3, he says the following: listen to this word, right? Listen up. B'nai Yisrael, O Jewish people, I'll call hamishpacha asher leiti meretz Yisrael lemor. And listen to this, all the family, meaning you Jewish people, that I brought up from the land of Israel, right? Q, our special relationship with God, right? I'm sorry, that I brought you up from the land of Egypt, right? Q, our relationship with God. God saved us, God redeemed us, God brought us to the land of Israel. Rak etchem yadati mikol mishpachot ha'adama, right? Only you did God know, did God create a special relationship with from all the families of the earth, right? Special or not special? Special, right? We're special people. We're a unique relationship with God. Okay, you should feel proud, right? Okay, therefore, therefore, I'm going to hold you accountable and call you into account for all your iniquities, right? There's this like shift, like your special status with God has now brought upon you this devastating consequence, right? And that's sort of what Amos is playing at here, sort of a particularistic, universalistic sort of push and pull. And part of what Amos is saying, and we'll come back to this in a few moments as we finish the Haftarah, right? Why are we reading this by Achrimot and Kedoshim, right? Why is this such an important parsha? So part of what we're playing with is this idea of what does it mean to be a holy nation? What does it mean to have this unique destiny? For some, what this means, right? Sort of spill the beans early, is for some is that you're only as unique as you make yourself, right? You're only as special as you live up to the moral responsibility and charter that made you special. If you don't do that, then you're not really special, right? You're just like any other human being. You have the opportunity to be in the special relationship with God. But if you don't do that, if you don't follow the code that is supposed to do that, you don't follow the rules, then you're just like everyone else, right? Or you're not as unique as you thought you were, and you really need to fulfill the mitzvot and be part in the covenant with God. Otherwise, you're just like everyone else, right? Maybe that's part of what the message is. Coming back to our Haftarah, right? So what did they say? What did the sinners of our nation, of the people say? The end of verse number 10. What do they say? The evil won't approach us. It won't overtake us. It won't come to us, right? This is sort of the age-old challenge in the Nevi'im, in the early prophets, right? Who are dealing with, or the later prophets, who are dealing with the people, that they sort of feel like they're invincible, right? Either it's because of God is with them, or they're so strong militarily themselves. But they sort of feel their theology, as we've seen already, Yirmiyahu, we saw this when we learned some of the stories from Jeremiah, they feel like nothing can happen to them, right? That they are secure. If you really believe, they basically say to the prophet, if you really believe God is the one true God, and we're the people of God, so even if we do things badly, right? God is connected to our land. Nothing bad can befall us because there's no other entity, no other power greater than God, right? This is epitomized, if you recall, when we studied Jeremiah, we looked at the expression, Heichal Hashem, Heichal Hashem, Heichal Hashem, that the people claimed nothing bad could happen to the temple. This is the house of God, the house of God, the house of God, right? God's house is so special that even if we are bad and undeserving, no mortal can then encroach on God's space because God's great. Right? Separate God and the Jewish people. God alone is enough of a power, is the only power, and therefore no one can encroach on that. And part of what Jeremiah's message is, part of what Ezekiel's message is to the people, is that God doesn't want that, and therefore God will allow. That's why so much of the emphasis of prophecy is to highlight the fact that God is allowing this to happen, because they're right. God can't, nothing will happen unless God allows it. And so God allows it to happen, and therefore it happens. And sort of that's what Amos is sort of fighting against here as well. Really big downer so far, right? Everyone with me? We're going to turn on a nail, right? We're going to turn on I don't know what the expression is, turn on a hair, right? We're going to do one. Is that the expression, turn on a hair?
Turn on a dime.
Turn on a dime, thank you. We're going to turn on a dime. I don't even know where that comes from, right? We're going to turn on a dime, and we're going to get the rest of Amos. And this is like what sometimes some of the people who sort of look at sections of Amos, this is the Amos, what was before was blood and destruction. And this is roses and flowers, right? This is like the joyous, unbelievable part of Amos. Vayomahu, on that day, Kim et Sukkot David Hanofelet. I will resurrect the fallen booth, the fallen sukkah of David. V'garti etchem pirtzehem. I will repair their breaches and rebuild their ruins. Kimei olam, and rebuild them as they were of days of old. Leman Yershu et Sherit Edom, so that you should be able to conquer the remnant of Edom, the Chol Goyim Asher Nikru Shemi Aleim Num Hashem Osazot. Right, this is what God is going to do for all the people, the nation that God's name is called upon. Right, we've been playing with this theme about are we really God's chosen nation or not? And then the days we are God's chosen nation. Behold, days are coming. So says the Lord. B'nigash choresh. Ba kotzer, that the choresh, the plower will meet the reaper, meaning there'll be so much to harvest that you'll be plowing your field for the next season and still harvesting the bounty from the previous season. And you'll see those who are dealing with the grapes will meet the people who already need to plant the next season. I mean, there'll be so much abundance, so much growth, so much opportunity that you'll be finishing reaping the benefit of the previous year as you're already preparing for the next cycle, which never happens. And they'll rebuild all the cities, and they will build all the vineyards and all of that, and everything will be great and grow fruit. V'shavti et shrut ami b'nei Yisrael, I will return the remnant of the Jewish people. Ubanu arim, they'll build cities. V'nashu anishamot, they'll build the cities that were desolate. V'yashru v'natu kramim, they'll build and they'll plant, they'll dwell and plant vineyards. V'shatu et yenam, and they'll drink its wine. V'asu ganot v'ichlu et piream, right? They'll make gardens and eat the fruit of the vine. They'll be able to have whatever grows, they'll enjoy. And they will be implanted upon the ground. They'll be set into the ground, into the land of Israel. They won't be uprooted ever again. From on their land, that God gave to them. Amar Hashem Elkecha. So says the Lord your God. And that's how Amos ends, right? These beautiful words of consolation, of redemption, of nevuah, of prophecy, of the future redemption that the Jews will be implanted on the land. They'll build back. They'll have incredible prosperity. They'll be able to enjoy the land and the life that they have in the land of Israel. So says the Lord God. Right? So there are a lot of different sort of aspects to look at these different Haftarah in different directions. We spent a lot of time on the first part of the Haftarah. I want to spend a couple moments thinking about how this ties into our Parsha. Right? We started off by mentioning that we always read this Haftarah when it comes to these Parsha. Why? How do they connect to our Parsha? Yeah, Lee.
Just before we leave this, I've been still trying to understand the use of the sieve metaphor in here. Okay, it sounds that he's saying that no sinner will escape, that all the sinners will die.
What's the question?
I thought I heard you say that no one died.
No. It's that no one will remain.
I guess that's what you said, but I'm not sure what you mean by that. No one will.
Meaning, what does it say over here?
God
will command the nations to shake out Israel from around the nations, as one shakes a sieve, and nothing will fall.
No pebble will fall. In English, it says nothing will fall.
No pebble will fall.
Right. So when you're using a sieve, everything that's good is sifted out, and the only thing that remains are the pebbles. And the pebbles are presumably what God is trying to separate out for destruction.
Right.
So no pebbles fall to another. In other words, no sinner escaped. No pebble fell to the ground.
I thought the image was the opposite, was that God was going to have them sift through if that's the verb, sift through everything, and then you'll see nothing escape, nothing was there, and therefore, it will just show how total the destruction is.
Right. So I was footnote after what I was thinking, what is how I understood it, and the footnote agreed with what I said.
What does it say? Read it for me.
It says God promises that it's only the corrupt monarchy, the aristocracy, that will be destroyed, not the nation as a whole. He uses the simile of a sieve, which releases only kernels of grain but holds back the useless pebbles. So too, the good people of Israel will suffer only dispersion, but unlike the pebbles among them, will not be lost.
Right. So the Ibn Ezra says similar, that not everyone will be destroyed. Some will be destroyed. So it's interesting. So in that, the pebbles are the evil, right?
Yes.
So in the Malbim notes, the opposite. So I'm just going to read the end of it. Al pi ha-pizur, based on the separating of the wheat, which is bad to everyone. That's how all the Rishayim, all the sinners, will be spread out to everyone. Aval hatzadikim hatzrorim, the stones that are the righteous people, b'tzror hachayim, haTorah, hamitzvot, b'achdut Yisrael, those that are strong, the rocks that are connected, suror, like we say in the Kalmale, the suror hachayim, they're bound up into the connection with God, based on Torah, on mitzvah, on Achdut Yisrael, on unity of Jewish people. Lo yiplu, eretz won't be brought to the ground. Bisharu emunatam will stay in their thing and be redeemed, in their faith and be redeemed. Right? Basically, I was reading it from that angle, meaning everything gets destroyed, and the only thing that doesn't get destroyed is what remains in the sieve, and there isn't a pebble remaining in the sieves even.
You know why you thought of that, Rabbi? It's because you're interested in archaeology.
Yeah.
So when you're using a sieve in archaeology, all you want is what remains in the sieve.
It's probably true. That is exactly the model I was thinking about. And that's me saying that there isn't even, if you read it that way, right? Below you plot swore eretz, meaning there isn't, you could read, and I think this was the way I read it, the verse the first time, is that you're sifting it through. The only thing you're keeping are the stones, and there are no stones there. Meaning at the end, when you want to pour it out and see what remains, there's nothing there. Everything has been sifted out. Everything is gone. Everything is destroyed. That's the way I read it. What you read is the way Rashi reads it and the Ibn Ezra reads it. Or not Rashi, the Ibn Ezra reads it. What I'm reading is sort of based on the Malbim, although I didn't read the Malbim before you asked your question. But I think there's either way of reading this. The question is, how bad do you want this prophecy to be? And that's a challenge because he sort of is constantly playing with us. We don't know what to expect, right? Sometimes you read something and you sort of know what it's supposed to be, and therefore you can figure out what it means. You don't know what it's supposed to be. He could, turn on a dime again, and this could be really positive, or at least not as destructive, or not. We don't know what to expect fully, and a little bit depends how you're reading this conversation. Is this going downhill, and so this is going to be even worse, or not? We don't know. That's
It's just that the next pasuk says that all of the sinners of my people, will die.
Right, and that's even Ezra says, look, this means only the sinners. All of the sinners are going to die. That's just proof positive that what we're talking about are the rocks. No one's going to escape that judgment. So you're totally right. The Ibn Ezra reads it your way, reads it with the connection of the next verse. The Malbim doesn't. So, and I think the question is sort of how much of a bumpy ride do you expect Amos to be giving us right now? It's almost like the more zigzaggy, the more maybe it fits the model. Who knows? All right, you could really spend a lot of time sort of developing these verses and reading them through different ways. We didn't do that, but you can. And I think I once taught these verses just alone. I could spend 45 minutes reading through them and the different ways that he uses that metaphor. But let's just connect to our Haftarah now, to our Parsha. Why are we reading this? Right, what is this? What is it about Achrimot and Kedoshim, the core of Parashat or the book of Vayikra, that's so important? And I think it really hits on the issue, the challenge of uniqueness and the challenge of being a holy nation, right? Is a holy nation a status that's sort of given to everyone? And like, you have to keep up to it, but even if you fail, you're still a holy nation? It seems like not, at least according to our Parsha, right? We read what is in our Parsha, right? Our Parsha is the arayot, the forbidden intimate relationships. It's about holiness. It's about kashrut, about what we're allowed to eat, what you're not allowed to eat, right? And we over and over again, we hear, don't debase yourself like all the other nations. Don't act like they did, that God spit out them from the land of Israel, right? Meaning, maybe you're not as unique as you thought you were, right? That you need to not be like other nations. And if you don't earn your status as a holy nation, then you're like everyone else, and the nation will spit you out also, right? And what's the inverse of that? We'll read from Amos, right? You're not so special. You're only special if you keep the moral code that is the basis of the covenant between you and God. Right now, this is not necessarily theologically the full picture of what we think about the Jewish people, right? Don't we have an idea that the Jewish people will never be fully destroyed? So if you're an Amos reader, you're reading the Pshat, and you're reading the Pshat of Kedoshim and Achremot, the simple explanation, well, you have to say, well, God also promises that the people won't entirely be corrupt. But if there was and therefore there will always be people who will be worthy of their status. But Lu Yitzura, if you create a situation where the entire nation was corrupt, we would lose our status as special people, right? It's not automatic. You have to earn it, right? We have the potential. The gift might be that we have the capacity to earn it, but if you don't earn it, you're not special, right? Maybe that's part of what the commentary of Haftarah is on our Parsha, right? A recognition, a reminder that this moral code isn't like you're special and therefore you have to be kept to the standard. And if you don't, you'll just be wayward special people. No, well, your specialness is imbued by your conforming to the specialness of the code of the moral and holiness that is created through fulfilling God's commands. Right, and that's a really interesting sort of take about uniformity, universalism, and particularism. Like, what makes us special? Right, and this is, sort of contrast this for a moment. You read like some of the Hasidic works, right? There's an imbuing within, and this is like a core Chabad sort of understanding, right? Chabad will tell you that every Jewish neshama is special and pure and holy from God from the outset. There's nothing you can ever do to taint that, and that is 100% based in Jewish thought. But what I'm sharing, what we're reading in Amos here, is an understanding that is contrary to that. It's a different way of looking at that. It's sort of saying that every individual person, if you don't live up to that standard, you aren't really as special as you think you are, right? That you can be spit out of the land, right? And you'll be spit out of the land not because there's some sort of punishment, just because the land will do that to anyone. They'll do that to the Kaftorim and the Kushim and the Canaanites, and unfortunately to the Jewish people also, if we don't meet that requirement. So it's really interesting sort of theological overlay that our Haftarah gives to the Achremot Kedoshim saga, which is the centerpiece in many ways of the book of Vayikra, which is the book which talks about Torah Kohanim, the relationship between God and the Jewish people in a spiritual way. So we'll stop here. There's really a ton more to talk about Amos. Amos is one of my favorite books of Tanakh, but we'll have to save something for next year. So this is a short Haftarah.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Yashar Koach.